All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new. Boss says greetings. Hello to everybody. Sorry. Tried to turn him to face the camera, but he's too fixated on the fact that I have snacks somewhere around here so that if we hit some goals today, membership-wise, Boss will be rewarded with some snacks. Now, I did just feed him as well to hold him over. So he should be good for a little while. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. We have a really interesting stream today. A lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of stuff to unpack, a lot of speculation to be had, a lot of different things seemingly getting confirmed, at least to some extent. And of course, today is the day of the Xbox Developer Direct. So I'm probably going to have to address this question at least a couple of times throughout the stream. So I'll address it for the first time now. Am I going to stream the Developer Direct? Yes. But that's going to happen in a separate stream. Okay, so this stream is just dedicated to talking about the topics. Just a regular stream, I guess, that you would come to expect. And so the Xbox Developer Direct starts at 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's in about 3 hours from now. So when we get close to that, maybe around, 2:30 mark, 2:45 mark, I'll end this stream and I'm going to set up the Developer Direct stream so we can react to it and watch it together, okay? I am looking forward to it. More than anything, I'm looking forward to seeing some Hellblade. Saying it's going to be a long day for me. Maybe. I don't think so. It depends. I mean, the Developer Direct, I think, is going to be about like 50 minutes or something. So when it's all said and done, it'll be like a normal, relatively normal stream for me. But yeah, so let me give you a quick rundown of the topics that we're going to be talking about today. As you can see with the title here, Microsoft's CEO confirms publishing on PlayStation. And he seems to do it in a pretty, what I think to be a significant manner. I think Microsoft is really making themselves loud and clear here. Of course, there's always going to be people who want to deny certain things until they actually happen, and I understand that. But I've been saying for a little while now that the writing is very clearly on the wall. You would have to be actively ignoring even looking in the direction of the wall to think that what's about to happen isn't going to happen. But on top of that, we're talking about how subscription services in gaming are seemingly flatlining. Not just Game Pass, but across the board. The idea of the subscription service future, the subscription service being the dominant model, not looking too good. Not looking good at all. So we have a lot to unpack here today. Before we do that, though, we have both actually Trismegistus coming in, dropping a 5-bomb on us, getting us started off strong here today. And on top of that, we have Jake Skew 27 following it up with a membership gift of his own. So guys, that is 6 memberships gifted off the bat. Thank you so much, Exley, Jake Skew. Really appreciate that consistent support. I'm going to add that to the counter. Again, if we hit some goals today, if we're able to hit some membership goals, Boss will get some snacks. And yes, they are the snacks with the drugs. It's okay, though. I've been testing it out. I've been giving it to him a little bit more, but at different times during the day to see if he's like chill with it now, if he's cool with it. He's pretty cool with it. So I feel confident in kind of going back to that. And we also have Hellbound 1981, another legend, following it up with another 5-bomb. Guys, that is 11 members gifted before we even get into the topics today. Hellbound, thank you so much as always, man. You guys that continually show up to the stream and consistently gift memberships, really appreciate that support, really appreciate that consistency. It means everything. So thank you so much, Hellbound.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That brings us up to 11. Let me add that to the counter. And I have a super chat from Michael Lynch. And Michael, before I read your super chat, I do just want to first off thank everybody for watching. If you watch the streams live, thank you so much. If you can't watch them live or you prefer to watch them later on, still appreciate that viewership. Always want to emphasize, or at least I'm going to start to emphasize. I feel like I emphasize this at the end of the stream. I'm going to start doing it at the beginning. If you're somebody who's watching the stream later on, timestamps. Okay, Devil Shooter does the timestamps. Shout out to him, but they're there for a reason. Okay, leverage those, utilize those. I know that not everybody, is here to watch the entire stream, and I get that. So if you're just looking for specific topics, make sure you check out those timestamps. Okay. Do me a favor, guys. We're at 82 likes. Can we get to 100? We have over 300 people watching, which is awesome. Let's see if we can get to 100 likes, or maybe beyond that to 150. It really helps the streams out. Lets me know you guys enjoy them. 3 ways you can support me directly. As you can see, you can become a channel member. Okay, we have a members lounge that we do. It's a good time. You never really know what you're going to get. I never really even know what I'm going to talk about. Well, sometimes I do, but most of the time not. So if you want to become a member, gain access to that, feel free to do so. You gain access to some other perks as well. And obviously, we're going to continue to grow that as time moves forward. If you are already a member, consider gifting memberships. And last but certainly not least, please consider donating a super chat. Ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, anything in between. All of it goes a long way and really helps me out. So shout out to everybody who does that, and a big thank you. Michael Lynch is saying here with a $5 chat, I'm surprised you don't like Indiana Jones. The first 3 movies are so iconic. I'd say that trilogy is probably as beloved as the original Star Wars. Well, here's the thing. It's not that I dislike Indiana Jones. Certainly not. It's just that I am. It's one of these things where it just kind of passed me by, right? Like I've like watched the movies kind of in passing, but never really like got into them. I never really like sat down and truly tried to watch like a couple of Indiana Jones movies back to back. But I've seen them, in passing, and it never really got its hooks in me. So it's just one of these things that I feel like I'm kind of on the outside looking in, and the way I'm looking at the Machine Games Indiana Jones title is this could be a way for me to kind of really get more involved with this IP. I would actually liken it to Harry Potter, right? Hogwarts Legacy. I'm just not a huge Harry Potter fan. I've never really cared that much about the books or the movies, and I've like, read a book or two. I've seen, I'd say probably like 3 or 4 of the movies again in passing. So it's one of these things where like once I see that like AAA video game that looks like a must play, looks very good, it just kind of, it's a door opening for somebody like me to kind of get more involved with that intellectual property. And I think that with this Indiana Jones game, it could end up doing the same thing depending on how it looks. But yeah, I probably should sit down and really kind of dive into these movies. They are legendary movies, and it's just again one of these kind of blind spots for me. I grew up watching so many movies, but for some reason the Indiana Jones movies just kind of weren't. I don't know. They weren't very prevalent for one reason or another. So you're saying, honestly, I only recognize the first 3 movies. Yeah, I know the newest one that just came out, I don't know what's going on there. Like, it just seemed like people were not very happy with it. And then I know there was a movie that came out, I think in 2008, and that I think was pretty divisive. So, yeah, I think that's kind of something that made me like less interested in exploring Indiana Jones, is just seeing that the 2008 movie just wasn't highly received, and then the latest one kind of got decimated on the internet anyway. So we have you're saying stop at the 3rd. All right. I got you. We have Cobb Sanity, member for 7 months, saying good morning, MBG. Well, good morning to you, Cobb Sanity. I hope you're having a good morning. We have Zeno3646XL saying, how many copies do you think Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth sells? Well, honestly, I think it's easily a 10 million seller. I don't think it's going to reach 10 million like immediately. I think it might take 2 years, a year and a half potentially, like at the, if it's selling really well. But I think like up front, it'll, well, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a chance because it seems like Rebirth is going to release on PC like 3 months after PS5. So because of that, I could maybe see it achieve like 5 or 6 million sales this year. Like, like pretty rapidly, maybe within the first 6 months. 10 million is not unrealistic to me in the long run. I mean, maybe I am being a little bit unrealistic by saying it'll achieve that in a year and a half, but I do think in the end, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will be a 10 million seller. It'd be like, to me, it'd be kind of surprising if it didn't. You're saying the first one only reached 7 million? I don't think so, dude. I'm pretty sure it sold more than 7 million. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that. Let me see. Okay, so it seems like the last update we got. Okay, you know what? You're right. Maybe I'm being too bullish with this. Final Fantasy VII Remake tops 7 million units sold September 15th, 2023. All right, my bad. All right, in that case, let me reevaluate this. Rebirth, okay, I could see Rebirth 3 million in the first 3 months or less. Maybe less than 3 months. And then I think it could climb to 7 million faster than Remake did, potentially. If it gets like, massive critical acclaim, it's releasing on PC sooner. I think it could reach 7 million. So what? It took it like 4 years to do it. Well, then again, it's not releasing on PS4. All right, you know what? Let me simplify this. To answer your question, I think within the first 2 years, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will hit 5 million at least. But I think because it's releasing on PC sooner, it has the chance to maybe go beyond that. Possibly. So that's where I'll leave it. I could have swore I read a while ago that Remake sold 10 million, but I don't know. I guess I was wrong about that. And we have Corey the Legend Landiga coming in, dropping a 10 bomb on us, keeping the membership train rolling at full speed here. Corey brings us up to 21 members on the day, so we are just 4 away from already crushing a goal. Thank you guys so much, seriously, for all of the support. I'm going to add that to the counter here. Welcome to any new members who just received a gift from Corey. Corey the Legend, always doing heavy lifting with other community members here. Good stuff, man. Yeah, that's true. Final Fantasy VII Remake was also on PlayStation Plus. I have to imagine that probably... Well, they probably put it on there because the sales were slowing down. But Jake Skew, you're saying, have to go to work, have a good stream. Well, I appreciate it, Jake. Thank you for stopping by, and thank you for dropping that membership gift a little while ago. So I hope you have a good day at work, dude. With that being said, though, we are going to dive into the first topic here. Okay, and what I want to start out I have to figure out how I want to present this. All right, so we're going to start talking about what's going on with subscription services in the video game industry. I want to start here so that way it'll help us kind of segue into the conversation about why Microsoft is clearly on their way to becoming a third-party publisher. Again, the writing is on the wall. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a thing that is happening, and I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of this year, Microsoft, at least when it comes to the Xbox brand, we are having just conversations that we would have never thought possible. We're already having those conversations right now, but I expect that to be amplified greatly. The dial turned up to possibly 10 or 11 by the end of this year, based off of everything we're about to go over. Okay? So Severin Evans, a member for 1 month, says, MBG, if you guys want to continue the exclusivity of the Final Fantasy series, is it going to take more than 7? It's going to take more than 7 million sales. That's not great. Listen, Severin, I'll tell you this right now. I've said this before, and I will reiterate it here. And I know that there are going to be some PlayStation fans that disagree with me. Talking about third-party publishing and third-party multi-platform games, I would have zero problem if tomorrow Square Enix was like, we're just going to release Rebirth on Xbox as well. I would have no problem. Like, I understand that that's like an exclusive game at the PS5 console exclusive. It loses. I get that, but it's not Sony's game. And at the end of the day, what I want is for games to do well. I want games to succeed. And if it's true that 7 million is not enough, well, then that's fine. Do what you got to do to make it enough. But here's the thing though. I also have to acknowledge that Sony is paying a lot of money to Square to secure this exclusivity. So while I'm not against it being multi-platform, I also have to acknowledge that Square would not agree to a deal like this if they weren't making good money from Sony. And that money they're making from Sony is money that they don't have to, that could be what justifies this, where it's like, okay, if we sell at least 7 million, we're making a profit because the X amount of millions of dollars that Sony paid us for this exclusivity is going to cover, the fact that we might not hit 9 or 10 million sales. Same thing with like something like Final Fantasy 16. It's not necessarily a bad thing that the publisher is securing a portion of the bag up front, just like Microsoft does with developers for Game Pass. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, it's like, it just comes down to the publisher and what they feel most comfortable with. If Square Enix really felt like by not striking that deal with Sony, not taking Sony's exclusivity money, right, and releasing it on Xbox, I bet you the reason why Square doesn't do that is because they're pretty convinced that they would not make the same amount of money selling this game on Xbox at launch as what Sony is paying them. Like, I bet you that's why they're not doing it. Because it's like, I don't know, man. We're going to talk about sales on Xbox later and how, dude, things are looking pretty dire for Xbox, like as a platform, like straight up. I know that people are going to say that's fear mongering. I don't think things. Let me put it this way. Maybe using the word dire is a bit much. I don't think things are going the way Phil Spencer and company thought they would. And now they are looking to make some big changes. And I'm going to go over more data later that just came out that seems to indicate this to a certain extent. Again, I don't know that it's ultimate. I don't know that in the end it's a bad thing. Like, it's not a bad thing if Microsoft goes third party. It could be in terms of competition in the console space, but if you're like an Xbox player, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing for you. I think that's fine. But anyway, I digress. If Final Fantasy ends up going multi-plat, I'm totally cool with that. If Sony wants to keep writing massive checks to Square Enix to secure these games as exclusives, and Square says, hey, that's good money, we'll take it, I have no problem with that either. When it comes to these third-party exclusivity deals, I'm fine with either, where it's like, Sony, you do what you got to do to make your platform more appealing, and if that's money that you think is worth spending, then go for it. I play on PS5. I'm not going to complain. But if a third-party publisher says, no, we don't really want to strike deals like that, we just want to maximize our sales, I'm totally fine with that as well. So we'll see. We're going to have to wait till Sony does another showcase to see how many other exclusivity deals they've signed. But I think there was a rumor recently saying that Final Fantasy VII Remake, there's like conversations happening behind the scenes where it might end up releasing on Xbox. And it's like, I mean, sure, like it couldn't hurt anything. You know what I mean? Like, that game did what it was going to do for PlayStation consoles. It's, if Square wants to try to squeeze more juice out of that, so to speak, get as much as they can from it, go for it. Anyway, diving into the first topic here, subscription growth in the gaming industry is seemingly flatlining. So this data comes from Matt Piscatella over on X, formerly known as Twitter. For those who don't know, Matt Piscatella is the executive director and video game industry analyst at Circana, or NPD. So, they deal with all of this data. He put out a string of posts yesterday, and I'm going to read them. He says subscription growth has flattened, and subscription services on console and PC platforms accounts for only 10% of total video game content spending in the United States. I get that some people want to protect their preferred model, but the idea that subscriptions will become dominant is unsupported by the data. He continues by saying subscriptions have been more additive than cannibalistic and offers players, devs, and pubs more choice in how to play or how to go to market. Fear mongering on this topic is quite unnecessary, and apparently, his tweet is causing like console war stuff to go on, and of course it was. But I understand what he's saying here. Like, to me, the second part of this, him saying that they've been more additive than cannibalistic, it makes sense because I've always maintained that subscription services are fine. There's nothing wrong with video game subscription services. They have a place in the video game industry, obviously. But I've also always maintained that they are not going to be the dominant force going forward. They just will not. It doesn't make sense. The sustainability of it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't seemingly add up, regardless of what Microsoft says, regardless of what Xbox fanboys on Twitter say. It just doesn't make sense. It never did, and it probably never will unless there's some kind of dramatic shift in the way video games are developed. And that dramatic shift hasn't occurred yet. And we don't know if it's ever going to occur. So with this in mind, there's another report I have here from WCCF Tech. Microsoft had 33.3 million Xbox Game Pass subscribers at the end of 2023, Games Analyst estimates. Microsoft had around a total of 33.3 million Xbox Game Pass subscribers at the end of last year. At least that's what London-based independent analyst and consultancy firm Omida estimates as reported by IGN in an article about Microsoft's Xbox ecosystem strategy. Microsoft has long stopped reporting Xbox hardware sales data, and last year, the company also seemingly stopped reporting Game Pass numbers. As mentioned by Omida, senior game analyst James McWhirter, Xbox Game Pass adoption is slowing, and excluding the core tier, total Game Pass subscribers is estimated to be at around 33.3 million at the end of last year. We're seeing slowing adoption of Xbox Game Pass, even though Microsoft will claim otherwise, thanks to the repositioning of Xbox Live Gold as Xbox Game Pass Core, the analyst told IGN. He continues, our forecast estimates total Xbox Game Pass subscriptions, excluding Core/Live Gold, to be at 33.3 million at the end of 2023, which represents subscriber growth of just 13%. That is down from 15% in 2022. Notably, over half, 55%, are currently on the device-agnostic Ultimate tier. Whether that is an accurate number remains uncertain, but back in September of last year, the LinkedIn profile of Xbox Senior Marketing Director Craig McNary mentioned over 30 million Xbox Game Pass subscribers as of August 2023. Holy shit. Are things not looking good for Game Pass, if that's true? Let me tell you, things are not looking good for Game Pass if this is a true, even if it's off by a couple million, like if it's like, oh, it's not at 33 million, it's at 35 or 36 million, this is not good, okay? I see somebody in the chat, Dominic, you're saying, wow, Game Pass is failing. Yes, it is. And this is, now let me ask you, is it any surprise that the next part of the conversation, the next piece of information that I'm going to give you talks about Microsoft CEO talking about how they're going to be a publisher on PlayStation and Nintendo, and how he even mentions PlayStation and Nintendo before the Xbox consoles? Where's this article I'm reading from? It's coming from WCCF Tech, and it apparently originates from, I believe, IGN, and IGN was speaking to an analyst. Now, here's the thing. I would say, okay, maybe we should just take the 33.3 million subscribers with a grain of salt, and we still should. We don't know if that's an accurate number. However, when we look back at August of 2023, and it's true that it leaked out through a Microsoft employee's LinkedIn profile that Game Pass subscribers are over 30 million. Yeah, this seems to be like a relatively accurate number for Game Pass. I know people are going to get upset when they hear this. I understand. People are going to get upset. No, you're wrong, MBG. You're wrong. Okay, that's fine. You can say I'm wrong. Maybe I will be, but the writing is on the wall. And listen, people who are digging themselves into this hole thinking that Microsoft will not abruptly become a third-party publisher full on need to wake up and realize you're talking about a multi-trillion-dollar corporation, the most valuable corporation on planet Earth. They will do literally whatever they need to do. They don't give a shit whether that hurts your narrative or your feelings. Like, they're a corporation. They're in it to make money. They didn't spend $68 billion. Like, this is why I think it's so funny when people, when you see Xbox fans and you've seen them in the past where they're like, well, they didn't spend $68 million or $7.5 million to not make games exclusive. Like, for now, yeah, because they still think the subscription model is going to work. What happens when the subscription model doesn't work? Not just for Microsoft, but for Sony or for anybody. What then? We're seeing it literally right now. The answer to that is, well, we got to start releasing our games on other platforms, on other consoles. We need to start selling games. We need to start making money. That's what happens. So I get it. People are going to want to be in denial about it, but these same people were telling me that Starfield was a fucking game of the generation title that was going to make waves for years to come. Meanwhile, it didn't even crack the top 10 most sold on the NPD report. It's at number 11. It couldn't even make the top 10. I don't want to listen to these. I'm done listening to these people. They don't know what they're talking about. They just don't know what they're talking about. They just eat up anything Microsoft tells them, and they say, well, that's the future. But the thing is, Microsoft's telling them a bunch of different things. One day they're telling them this is about providing exclusive content. Well, it's on a case-by-case basis. Actually, we're going to publish on PlayStation and Nintendo. Game Pass matters. Console sales maybe don't. But, we're not going to take Call of Duty from PlayStation. It's like they're just all over the fucking place. What is it that these people don't get? That, like, Microsoft doesn't give a shit about maintaining the narrative. They're trying to make sure they don't shoot themselves in the foot, narratively speaking, but the mask is slipping and it's coming off because they have no choice. They need to make money. It's just the reality of the business. No different for Sony. No different for Nintendo. It's just Microsoft is in a very different position. Corey Landiga drops another 5 bomb on us. He drops 5 more membership gifts. He crushes the goal of 25. He brings us up to 26. Corey, my friend, thank you so much for the continued support. Let me update this member goal. But here we go. I'm getting ahead of myself once again. I didn't even go over all the info, and I'm just, I have so much to say clearly. But let me update this, and I want to play a little clip for you. Okay, so you can hear this is coming from Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Well, before I do that, Henry 3K, member for 9 months, says, I'm expecting more companies in the coming years to work with competitors and not so much against them in general. Microsoft is changing the field. Yeah, that's the thing, man, is I said in one of my previous streams not that long ago, I think last week, how it could be. Hold on really quick. You're saying someone dropped my name in a super chat on an Xbox podcast. All I'm going to say to that is that's right. Say my name, bitch. That's what I'll say to that. But listen, I said on one of my previous streams that it wouldn't surprise me if in the coming years, Sony does start to soften up as well and say, you know what, dude, Microsoft isn't our competitor anymore. They're literally bringing their games over, at least to a certain extent. They need us. So maybe we can take advantage of that too. I'm not saying that means we're going to get The Last of Us on Xbox and God of War on Xbox, but we're already seeing that Marathon's going to be on Xbox. Sony's totally fine with that. Maybe start with some of your live services. Hey, Microsoft brings over Sea of Thieves maybe in the future. I don't know if Concord's going to succeed or not. Yo, let's throw Concord over on Xbox. I don't know. I'll tell you what, if Concord is a complete flop, maybe that'll happen a lot sooner than we think, but maybe this is how it begins. And I think you might be on to something, Henry 3K, where it's like the gaming market is becoming so insanely volatile that it is starting to seem like these competitors, or what were once competitors, might start having to get a little bit more buddy and be like, all right, listen, we both are in this for the same reason, to make money. Maybe there's a way we can help each other out, because people have been saying that this is just a one-way street for Microsoft, right? Where you give some of your stuff to Sony or Nintendo, they're not going to give you shit. I can't speak for Nintendo. I don't think Nintendo's given anything to anybody. Sony, I'm not so convinced. Again, I'm not saying, oh, well, yeah, expect to see God of War on Xbox. I'm not saying that, but it's like, I don't know, man. Spider-Man 2018. One day. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like one day, could we see that shit drop on Xbox? Maybe. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. I want to say it's still unlikely, but it's just things are changing, and they're changing so rapidly. These companies are starting to freak out a little bit, where it's like, we gotta be profitable. We gotta make money. I see we have Matt Fu coming in, dropping a total of 15 membership gifts on this community. Matt Fu is bringing it today. Just like that. He drops 15. Guys, thank you so much. Matt, I really appreciate that, dude.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Matt just brought us up to 41 members on the day. 41 members. I got to play this clip for you guys, though. Sorry if I seem a little bit worked up right now. I'm not going to lie. I woke up with a ton of energy today. I'm not exactly sure why. And I woke up really early, too. So I'm just kind of leaning into that. I got a lot done today. And I was like a little bit worried. I'm like, I'm doing so much so quickly, so soon. Am I going to burn myself out? Am I going to have enough energy for the stream? No, clearly I do. So you're saying Sony fought so hard for 2 years to prevent crossplay on games. They're not putting Spider-Man on Xbox. Yeah, I look, I'm just throwing that out there because I don't want to make the same mistake that I see people on the other side making, which is, no, that's never going to happen. Or no, that's not, because I'm still seeing that now. Like, dude, I got to play this clip. Just know that as I'm about to play this clip, and I actually came across this from Reforged Gaming, he posted this clip, and it comes from Bloomberg Live. It's a 30-second clip. I just want you to know that as I'm playing this, keep in mind, there are still people out here in complete denial, specifically Xbox fanboys in denial that this is a thing that is happening. It's just the beginning. Like, it is actually starting now. And I'm seeing like articles over like Windows Central being written up about how like fans are right to be skeptical. It's like, listen, I get it, man. Like, and this is no offense to Windows Central, but it's like, dude, I remember seeing article upon article about how Windows Phone isn't going anywhere. Windows Phone isn't dead. Don't worry. Microsoft still cares about Windows Phone. Windows Phone is fucking gone, bro. I'm not saying it's an apples to apples comparison. I'm just saying this is how it goes every single time. People say this is what's going to happen. And this is how it's going to happen. Or wait, hold on. Don't jump to that conclusion. Nobody's jumping to the conclusions, bro. We're looking at the fucking writing on the wall and we're reading it with our own two eyes. Or we're listening. ACM, hold on. I got to play this clip. Here we go.
In which categories? And gaming, that was up, we've been at gaming, we love gaming. In fact, Flight Simulator was created before even Windows. But we were number 3, number 4, and with now Activision, I think we have a chance of being a good publisher, quite frankly, on Sony and Nintendo and PCs and Xbox. And so, yeah, we're excited about that acquisition closing. I'm glad we got it through. But I think each category by category is the view.
Bro, this man, The CEO of Microsoft listed Sony and Nintendo before his own shit. But people are going to tell me, nah, it's just a rumor, man. It's just rumors. Why are you believing the rumors, man? What is it with you and the rumors? Yeah, you know what? You're totally right. I'm fucking crazy. That's what it is. I'm nuts. I'm out there, bro. I'm as delusional as it gets, clearly. But that was Microsoft's CEO. He brought up Activision. You're right, he did. But why is it that we're not hearing rumors of Activision Blizzard games coming to PlayStation or Nintendo? We're hearing rumors of previously released Xbox Studio titles. No, this, in my opinion, this does not confirm. Well, there you go, guys. Hellblade 2 PS5 launch next year. No, it's not going to work like that. That would be too abrupt. Like even Microsoft knows they can't do it that way. It would cause the Xbox audience to implode on itself. It just can't be done that way. But I'm telling you, I'm looking at Starfield sales data, and I assure you I don't give a single fuck about Starfield. I'm not buying this game. I wouldn't play Starfield if it came on PlayStation Plus for free. I don't care about this game. So it's not about me wanting the game, but it's about this game was at the number 11th spot for 2023. A supposed game of the fucking generation. Okay? Now, do I think it's at the number 11 spot because it's a piece of shit game that nobody wants to play or buy? No. I mean, I think I think people are a little bit down on it comparatively to something like the Elder Scrolls. It's at the number 11 spot because it launched onto Game Pass. And anybody who tried to tell themselves that wasn't going to hurt overall sales is delusional. Of course it's going to hurt sales. Of course it's going to damage the overall sales potential. Because I promise you, if it didn't launch in the Game Pass, it would be in the top 10. It'd probably be in the top 5 or much closer to it. Sold for the year. So do not be surprised if Starfield is a game that goes to PS5 eventually. Maybe not next year, maybe not even the year after that, but eventually when they're like, you know what, we should probably try to get some sales on this because nobody's buying it. Nobody's buying it on Xbox. But how many people would buy it on PlayStation? You drop Starfield a year and a half from now on PlayStation 5, $70. How many people are going to buy that? Probably at least 1 million, maybe 2 million. At least a good chunk of people. Because you're talking about dropping a game that wasn't made available on your platform to an audience that is conditioned and accepting of paying for video games. Why wouldn't you? You would honestly, Microsoft would be dumb not to. And Xbox fanboys who are like, oh, I guess they want Starfield now. Listen, you're missing the point. You're missing the point entirely. This is the direction that Microsoft is inevitably headed in. And the reason why, keep in mind, they keep bringing up Activision because Activision, look at the stance that they took with them. Look at the stance that they took with Activision. No, it's not in 10th. It's not in the 10th spot. By the way, it's in the 11th spot. But the stance that they're taking with Activision is simply, yeah, we're third-party publisher when it comes to Activision. I think people are also losing sight of the fact that Microsoft has every intention of buying more publishers. They are not stopping until they are forced to stop. And believe me, when a failing subscription service like Game Pass gets in the way, possibly, of another acquisition, or the Xbox console gets in the way of another acquisition, they will steamroll that shit to make sure they get that acquisition, because that acquisition is what makes them the money more than anything else, especially if it's a big one. If there's one thing we have learned in watching Microsoft pursue Activision Blizzard is they are willing to give up almost everything, if need be, to get that over the line. Why is that? Because Activision Blizzard alone has more potential than Game Pass ever would. Now, apply that logic to another major publisher. This is what we're dealing with. This is what we're looking at. And people are still so hung up on every little thing that Phil Spencer said at this time or that time. Newsflash, Phil Spencer is a liar, just like every other fucking corporate executive. They're not here to tell you the truth. They're here to tell you what you either want to hear or what makes sense that day. Okay? That's it. That's how it goes. For Sony, for Microsoft, and everybody in between. I don't make the rules. That's just the way business is, man. ACM, sorry to keep you waiting with my rants here. ACM with a $20 super chat saying, MBG, I know you have Sir Speaks a Lot locked up under your hat. How'd you know? Yeah, where is Sir Speaks a Lot? I don't know. I haven't seen him in a long time. ACM, I don't know. I don't know where Sir Speaks a Lot is, man. I don't know. I wish I could tell you. I'm sure he'll show up eventually. D, you're saying, is any game confirmed? Is it that? Well, hey man, I told you. If that's how you want to play this, it's all rumor. I'm telling you, this is the shit that I'm seeing from people. It's just rumors. It's just rumors. It's just rumors. I need to know, when it's not a rumor anymore, what are you going to say? Like, what's the conversation going to be like at that point? I'm just wondering, because it's like, it should be clear by now that this isn't just... I'm going to play it again. I got to play it again, because people, they just don't want to hear it.
In which categories? And gaming,
they just don't want to hear it.
I don't know
why.
Being at gaming, we love gaming. In fact, Flight Simulator was created before even Windows. But we were number 3, number 4. And with now Activision, I think we have a chance of being a good publisher, quite frankly, on Sony and Nintendo and PCs and Xbox.
Okay. Let's dissect this a little bit more, because people still don't want to hear it. They still just don't. They're not listening to what this man is saying. This is not Phil Spencer. This is Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft. He says, we were number 3, we were number 4, but now we're in a good position. We're in a position that we wanted to be a publisher. And he proceeds to list PlayStation and Nintendo even before PC, and he lists Xbox last. This is not him saying to people like me, PlayStation fans, we are bringing all of our games to you guys. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, we have discovered the way to become number 1 is not through Game Pass, is not through consoles, is not through any of those things. It's actually through buying other publishers. That's how we become number 1. That's why he's talking like this, because every word that's coming out of this man's mouth is to set up a future acquisition. Now, is it possible that Microsoft could just get really nefarious with it and say, okay, well, we're just going to give away some games. We're just going to be a publisher for some games, so that way we can look good. Okay, well, I get that line of thinking. And I could even get behind it and say, maybe that is what they're doing. They're being nefarious, right? They're trying to obscure the truth here. And my problem with that is, when we look at the stagnation of Game Pass, when every single thing that Microsoft did, when Microsoft bought Ninja Theory, when Microsoft acquired Bethesda, this was all in the name of Game Pass. And Sony at that time was like, yeah, no, we're good. Like, that's not sustainable. And there have been just a myriad of conversations and back and forth, flame wars basically on the internet. Is Game Pass profitable? Is it sustainable? So on and so forth. And people have been having this argument over and over again. But here we are. Here we are with the reality in front of us that, subscriptions are flatlining, like across the board. It's just like the growth has completely stagnated. You know what hasn't stagnated? The PS5. You know what's not going to stagnate? The Switch 2. You know what is stagnating? PlayStation Plus. So Game Pass is absolutely a part of this. So we can't even say at this point that everything Microsoft is doing is purely in the name of Game Pass, because I think they're beginning to wake up to the reality that this just might not work. We had to be at like 50 million by now or 60 million. We have goals to get to 100 million. How are you going to do that when Starfield, the supposed game of the generation, coined by some people, hardly grew the sub-service? How are you supposed? And that's the thing. They're like, you know what? Yeah, I guess maybe that doesn't make much sense. You know what we should do? We should just start fucking selling games. We can have Game Pass. We can maintain Game Pass, and it turns out Microsoft can treat Game Pass the exact same way Sony treats the PlayStation console, comparatively to PC. Let's give them the game first. Pump up the numbers as much as we can. And when we can't, and when it stops, well, we'll just put it everywhere. To whereas Sony will put it on PC. This is just the literal most logical way forward. People laugh at the notion of one day possibly Starfield coming to PlayStation. What's laughable about that? What is unreal? Honestly, people who laugh at that notion, they're the dumb ones, because they are not thinking the way Microsoft is thinking. What Microsoft is thinking, eventually people are going to stop subscribing to Game Pass to play Starfield. Like, Starfield's not going to drive Game Pass subs. And it's certainly not going to drive sales on our ecosystem, in our ecosystem. So what do? You do the exact same thing you're getting ready to do with Hi-Fi Rush, with Sea of Thieves. Go sell that shit. Go make fucking money off of the games that you're making. That is the literal most logical path forward. That is what Satya Nadella is saying. Not only is he saying this from the perspective of, well, this is just how we make the most money. He's also saying it knowing we want to buy more publishers. The whole conversation about having Microsoft trying to achieve a monopoly in the console space, that's gone. The whole idea of Microsoft trying to achieve a monopoly in the subscription space is gone, because even if they wanted to, they seemingly can't do that. Like, they can't force subscribers. They're trying, but it's not working. So they realize, you know what? Let's leapfrog all that shit and let's go where the real money's made, where the real success is found in this industry. And that is, the more publishers we buy, the bigger we become, the faster we get to the number one spot. And the thing is, the more publishers Microsoft does acquire, that's a major player taken off the playing board. And it's theirs. Microsoft's stamp right on it. This is why I'm trying to tell people, like, it's not about the console wars. It's not even about the platform wars anymore. There is no war. There just is no war. Like, that to me is the funny shit here, is everything we're seeing now where it's like, oh, we're going to watch a Xbox developer direct. Oh, look at that. Hellblade, Avowed, Indiana Jones. None of these games are coming to PlayStation. Yeah, not yet. Not yet. But once people realize that Microsoft's going to try to make a play for another publisher, I don't know who it would be. Take-Two Interactive, Ubisoft, somebody. Once they make a play for another publisher, they're gonna hit extreme resistance. And let me ask you this: when the day comes where Microsoft is faced with the reality that the only way you're getting another publisher is you have to go full third party, like full-blown third party. That's the only way. What do you think they're going to do? I mean, honestly, what do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to say, never mind. We don't need them that badly. No, they're going to say getting this publisher is the priority. Over Game Pass, over consoles, even over our own fucking ecosystem. Why? Because that is the biggest safety net a company like Microsoft could have. It is the biggest. The safety net of Activision Blizzard and having Call of Duty and having King is so much larger and safer than Game Pass, than their own ecosystem, where people probably aren't even really buying games. This is what people don't seem to want to acknowledge when it comes to Microsoft. And I don't know why, but it should, by this point in time, it should be painfully obvious to everybody that every single move Microsoft makes is in the name of future acquisitions and consolidation, not their own platform, not their own console, not their own subservice. This is all auxiliary at this point. It went from one to the other to the next. And it was always going to be this way, to be honest. Like, once Microsoft as a company decided, we're involved with Xbox now, we are going to make sure Xbox is a core pillar of the Microsoft company. Once that happened, it was always going to come down to this. It was always going to eventually whittle down to, okay, what's the bottom line here? And this is the bottom line. Being a dominant publisher that is frankly untouchable by anybody. Certainly not Sony, not Nintendo, right? As long as Nintendo is, still doing the whole exclusive thing like Sony is. Not by anybody, not by EA, not by Take-Two. They're going to leapfrog everyone. And I don't know why people think, for some reason, that the things that Microsoft is doing is in the name of, we got to make sure that we have our own games that aren't on PlayStation. Like, for now, they can't just rip the Band-Aid off like that, and they're not going to until they have to, but they will have to. They will. They definitely will. And it's going to be a long, painful journey till we finally get there. But that's what Microsoft CEO is trying to tell everybody, that, we're a publisher now. It's a transition. It's a shift. It's a change in strategy. Hell, their fucking CFO said it to all the investors last year. And everybody was in denial then, too. They're like, nah, you guys are... And literally the only thing Phil Spencer said is, I assure you Game Pass is not coming to PlayStation or Nintendo Switch. Like, okay, yeah, of course, because they're not going to let it on there. He didn't say anything about third party. He didn't say any fucking thing about that. And no one picked up on that. No one brought that up. So when we take a step back here and we think, okay, well, hold on. What about PlayStation? What about Sony? How does any of this, what does all of this mean for Sony PlayStation? It honestly just means that Sony's got to figure it out. They got to, it kind of brings us back to the same thing we've been talking about, which is Sony is they have their own world of problems to deal with, in that the cost of gaming, of game development isn't going down. It's only going up. The imperative, on them to sell 8, 9, 10, 11 plus million copies of a single game, especially if it's exclusive, the pressure is mounting, and Sony has to find their own safety net. Microsoft found their safety net. It's not Game Pass. It's not the console. It's being a publisher, and it's buying more publishers. That's their safety net. Sony isn't doing that. Sony can't do that. So what's Sony's safety net? Sony's safety net's not PlayStation Plus. Sony's safety net for now is the PS5 and the exclusive games, but they need more than that. They need a wider safety net. And that is possibly going to come in the form of live service games. If not that, well, fuck if I know. If I had the answer to that, right? Like, Sony, you should hire me. I'll be the next CEO. I'll help. I'll right the ship. I'll guide us to that wide-reaching safety net that will make sure nothing, that it's just, we can't fail. Interesting times, man. Or yeah, the safety net could be mobile. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That absolutely could be it. As shitty as that sounds, but it's just the reality. Microsoft's not worried about Sony, dude. Like, I don't know when people are going to fucking wake up and realize that. Microsoft doesn't give a shit about Sony. And Sony at this point is beginning to not give a shit about Microsoft because, dude, you think Sony isn't like, well, hold on. What did Microsoft CEO just say? Dude, Sony knows what's coming. Sony is well aware, and it worries them. Because, dude, like, you remember how we had this conversation where we've had this conversation for years where it's like, should Sony be worried about Game Pass? Should Sony feel threatened by Game Pass? And we always like kind of came to the conclusion, no, it doesn't seem like it. And anytime Jim Ryan or anybody from Sony would talk about it, they're like, yeah, we're not worried about it. Because Sony was pretty fucking sure, yeah, that's not going to work. Like, we are in this game too, and we're here to tell you, like, that's not going to work. It's not going to work for anybody, not even us, not even Microsoft. And, you know, there was that whole argument that is like, no, it'll work. It's just, they just got to hit this number. They just got to give it enough time. And they got to, well, if you were to ask Sony, is what Microsoft's doing now, is that going to work? I bet you the answer from Sony would be, oh yeah, yes, that will work. Because again, it's reaching the bottom line here. It's the end game. The end game is something that trumps consoles, something that trumps subscription services, something that trumps even an ecosystem, right? Like an own closed ecosystem. It even trumps that. And what is it? It is total fucking domination in the publishing space. Basically, Microsoft doing what Embracer Group tried to do, except competently, because they have the money to do it. That's essentially it. Why? Like, here's the thing. We talk about Embracer Group. It's like, dude, what the fuck happened to Embracer Group, man? Like, what went on there? How could they have imploded? You want to know why? Because you're talking about business people who saw nothing but dollar signs, bro. Like, they're like, oh shit, we're going to gobble up all these motherfuckers and we're going to make the most games. We're going to sell games and we're just going to reap the profit. And they just totally underestimated, like, but do you have the scale? Like, do you have the resources backing backing that up? Because you're not wrong in your, in your laser focus, like, publishing is the name of the game. Like, that's how we make the money. Yes, it is. But do you have the scale? Do you have everything needed to support that? Even at times when it doesn't get off to the strongest start? The answer was unequivocally absolutely not, and they fell flat on their face. In the case of Microsoft, the answer is absolutely they do. Microsoft has every single resource at their disposal to be the world's biggest publisher that no one can touch. It's just the only thing in their way, literally the only thing, is government regulation. And trying to and having to convince these publishers to want to sell and merge. Just so you know, by the way, people think I'm wrong about this. Let's head over to the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, shall we? Where's it at? I know it was here earlier. Would it disappear? Maybe it was moved. Well, anyway, I don't know why I can't find it now. But I was on the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, and what people discovered is that there is apparently a job listing at Microsoft for future acquisitions and mergers. I believe specifically for the Xbox division. Let me see. And I just feel like when you come across stuff like that, it's like, It's right there. It's right in front of our faces. Like, I mean, again, I feel like at this point, anything I say is it's just totally redundant because it's like the fucking CEO is saying it himself. Now, maybe in the end, Microsoft does have some kind of major nefarious plan where it's like it's like a 4D chess move where it's like we're just gonna convince everybody we're gonna be a third-party publisher. And then we're gonna do that so we can acquire as many publishers as possible. And then once we've acquired all those publishers and all the contracts expire and there's nothing anybody can do about it, then we reveal our true plan, which is, well, now we're done being a third-party publisher. And the only way you can get all of these games is through our ecosystem. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. Because if Microsoft pulled that shit, good luck in the future with any of your other divisions. You think the acquisitions are going to stop in just the gaming sector? No. That would be the biggest black mark Microsoft could ever get because they would prove that they're deceitful, that they're liars, they can't be trusted, and because of that, they won't be trusted. And on top of that, they would actually probably lose more money than if they just embraced every other ecosystem. So even that line of thinking falls apart when, again, I just have to keep emphasizing this because I feel like when we have these conversations, people get too laser focused on like Xbox as a brand. Microsoft is the most valuable company in the world now. That's all you got to know. That's it. That's all you have to know. Microsoft became the most valuable company in the world by learning to embrace this exact strategy in other areas of their business. They tried the whole monopoly thing and it didn't really work out for them. It caused problems for them at certain points. And maybe, some people could argue that, well, they do have that with Windows. But even beyond that, when they became a services company, yeah, they were a software company and, Windows, of course, but they eventually transformed more into a services company. They realized that the only way we're going to succeed is by just embracing everybody else. So, yeah, you're saying they're a successful monopoly in the PC industry. Well, there you go. Maybe that is what they think. They think, we could pull that same shit in the gaming industry. Maybe. But I just think it's too unlikely. I just think it's too risky, I think, for them. Microsoft might lose some of their fans if they go third party. Dude, it's not going to matter because Microsoft will lose the radical fans. Well, they won't actually, because what are those radical fans going to do at that point? Think of it like this. Think of it if you're a PlayStation fan. Just to put it, put the shoe on the other foot here. You're a PlayStation fan. Let's just say tomorrow Sony announces we're going full third party. So the next God of War, the next Horizon, the next Spider-Man, future new IP. It's not exclusive to the PlayStation console. Are you as a PlayStation fan going to say, fuck those games, I'm not playing those? I'll be honest. If that is how you react to it, I'm not sure that you technically are a PlayStation fan, but you're more of a fan of the console hardware than the games. And that, again, I know that's a very extreme example, but that is basically what we're looking at potentially in the long run for Microsoft right now. And that's where it's like this whole, Xbox fans acting like they have to rally together and be like, no, these rumors might not be true. Like, who fucking cares at this point, guys? Like, what? I mean, seriously. Like, you guys went from cheering on a console that shipped with a fucking Kinect and an online DRM that had to be reversed. You went from that to cheering on a subscription service to cheering on consolidation to, whether you knew it or not, you were cheering this on the whole time. But the problem is, this is like, hold the line. There's no fucking line to be held, dude. It's over. Like, it's fucking over. And this is just the beginning of the end. And that affects Sony too, just to be clear. Again, Sony is going to be left standing there being like, what the fuck do we do? It is there. I don't even know that there's a winner or a loser here as much as it's just, dude, the game has changed. The gaming industry has changed. And neither Microsoft nor Sony were necessarily fully equipped to be able to perfectly navigate this change, but they're learning. They're figuring it out as they're going. And the difference between Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo is Nintendo seems to be okay if they, I don't want to say let's just face it, they get left behind in a way. Yeah, we're not making the most powerful console. Yeah, we're not. I mean, I saw this thing where it was a Nintendo executive directly answering a question from one of their shareholders where he was just like, we really care about the games and the passion that goes into them. And sometimes that's more important than just market share growth, and just pleasing the shareholders. Like, basically Nintendo telling the shareholders, like, this is what we do. You're either on board with it or you're not. And I respect Nintendo for that, because it's like, that kind of, that takes balls for a company to be like, yeah, that's what we're doing. You're saying they're cheap. They have to worry about costs as well, of course, but I'm just saying, like, that Sony kind of does that too, but you could also tell that Sony, because Sony is not just PlayStation, they also have big, lofty ambitions. Not on the same level as Microsoft, but Microsoft absolutely trumps both Sony and Nintendo. Just in just sheer, like, look at the size of this corporation. It's like the moves that they could make are unheard of. Literally unheard of. A company has never been this valuable before. So basically, I guess what I'm trying to tell Xbox fans is you got to start, they're going to have to become Microsoft fans more than anything. Marty said, all right, Marty says, dude, you're smoking crack. How is $5 billion a year in revenue more profits than Sony failing? They barely closed ABK. Once that gets in the Game Pass, subs will rise, and they will wait years to get mobile. See, I'm going to tell you right now, the biggest flaw in what you're saying is, do you think that's Microsoft's outlook? Do you think that's how they, well, look, we're making more money than Sony, so we're good. We'll just wait years. See, there's flaws riddled in your argument here where Microsoft isn't waiting for fucking shit. They're done waiting. They're in it now. And they're the fucking pedals to the metal. They're not stopping. Will Game Pass subscribers rise? Of course they will with Activision Blizzard. Will they make even more money now? Of course. But this is what I'm saying. Like, you're not thinking big enough. You have to think the way an executive at a multi-trillion-dollar company would think. And believe me when I tell you, they are not thinking about Sony or Nintendo other than, we can make money from them. They can help us make even more money. You're not thinking big enough. When Phil Spencer, I have to say this, guys. I know we kind of laughed at Phil a while ago for saying this. Phil does lie, like all executives do, but he seemingly dropped this truth bomb preemptively. He was like, we're not competing with Sony and Nintendo. He said that shit years ago, and we all kind of laughed at him because, like, what the fuck do you mean? Well, now we know. Yeah, they're not competing with Sony and Nintendo. Sony and Nintendo are not Microsoft's competition because Microsoft's not competing with anybody. Microsoft's competing with the fucking regulatory bodies. That's who they're competing with, bro. So believe me, anything... You think we're thinking too short term? Microsoft can afford to play the long game because they're swimming in money. Eventually, things will change. They can afford it for now. Well, that's the thing, man. Is like they're swimming in money because, again, I have to once again reaffirm that, or re-emphasize that they didn't get to this point by being nefarious and not playing nice. But Microsoft didn't get to this point by playing the waiting game. The last time Microsoft played the waiting game was with Windows Phone, and it really blew up on them. Like, they thought if we just wait, we'll gain more than 1% market share, and it only shrunk. You know, they've been down this road before, man, is all I'm trying to say. Like, Microsoft has been down this road before, and every time once Microsoft realizes that you're not gonna penetrate the market the way you think, you lost. Like, once Microsoft realizes they lost, they say, fuck it, we'll join them. And it's the smartest move they've ever made as a corporation. Because once they do that, they find the most success they could have ever dreamed of. You know? Like, when I say join them, I just mean form a symbiotic relationship with whoever your competitor was. Once they do that, they succeed, man. Like, that's what Microsoft has done. You're saying losing brain cells here? I think it's funny that people talk like that. Like, do you not know anything about, like, Microsoft in recent memory, like in their recent history? I'm not talking about the Bill Gates era. I'm talking about the Satya Nadella era. Like, have you not seen the way that they've approached their different markets and their different divisions? Like, it's about being global and infiltrating everything, dude. Everywhere at all times. It's not about destroying your competitor. It's about just being it's not about competitors, it's about being there. That's what it's about for Satya Nadella. And that's why I think it's interesting that it's no coincidence that once Microsoft, the entire board, including Satya Nadella, once they got involved, they're like, well, this is the way we're going to go. And sorry, we got Chris B coming in. Chris B dropping another 10 bomb on us. Guys, Chris B just obliterated the second goal here, which was 50 members. He brings us up to 51 members. Chris, dude, thank you so much. I'm going to owe you some reps later. And I got to give Boss some snacks too. So, guys, remind me of this. I just want to make sure that I get through everything I want to say. But Chris B, thank you so much for the support, man. Let's see some W's flowing in the chat for Chris, by the way. I think one of the biggest reasons why people, not you guys, and I'm going to read these super chats. Just let me say this. I know that there's going to be people out there that are basically going to laugh at what I'm saying and just totally disagree with it. And they're thinking I'm like on a fucking, like I'm high, basically. What is this guy talking about? But in reality, like they're coming to that conclusion so abruptly because they think I'm framing this as Sony won and Xbox lost. Like when I say it's over, that doesn't mean anybody lost. Like the closest thing we can get to that is Microsoft lost the console war. They even said that themselves. They said, we lost and we're not competing anymore. Beyond that, nothing has been lost on either Sony or Microsoft side, because I'm trying to get it through people's heads that just because we are having these conversations and they are significant to the PlayStation brand doesn't mean that anybody won or lost. I understand that it's like ingrained in people, myself sometimes included, to look at it like, oh, Microsoft really fucked up, bro. It's over. They're done. Like, dude, the people, I get it. I know there's going to be a loaded statement, but the people who are most against Microsoft are in for a fucking shocker. Like they are in for a shock when they see Microsoft's true endgame here. Dude, Sony is going to be wishing they could be in Microsoft's position. Think about that. Sony is going to be wishing they could have the profit margins that Microsoft is going to end up having. And that's not because of Game Pass. That is because of what I fucking told you last year. The moment, or not even last year, when we go back to Bethesda, the moment the war chest was open for Phil, Xbox's future was solidified. It was already written. I'm not saying that means PlayStation's going to be in a bad spot. I don't think they will be, but they're just going to be on two different hemispheres, basically. Yeah, super publisher. Yeah, there you go. Leo gets it. Dude, Leo totally gets it. He's like, yo, Microsoft's going to be a super publisher. You're fucking right, they are. And the thing is, Sony's going to have something to gain from that too, by the way. Like, if Starfield eventually does come to PlayStation, Sony's going to make money off of Starfield. But who's making the lion's share of those sales? Microsoft. So again, man, symbiotic relationship in the name of, we don't need to compete against you. We're fucking Microsoft. Like, dude, we're the richest company in the world. Why the fuck are we competing with you? You know, like, we could use you. And sure, that may sound like disrespectful, or Sony might be prideful and be like, that's bullshit. But it's just that you want to talk about getting real about it. That's the reality of the business world, man. The business world is, there's a hierarchy. That hierarchy is dominated by market power, market presence, and cash, money. You know, it's just asset value. That's the name of the game. So, you know, listen, if like a month from now, it turns out that Microsoft makes an announcement, we're not bringing any of our games to PlayStation, I will have some serious apologies to issue and be like, I am shocked. Like, I will have to literally react to the stream and be like, wow, I'm an idiot. I couldn't have been more wrong. But I just don't think that's what's going to happen. I don't think Satya Nadella comes out and lists PlayStation and Nintendo first as where they want to publish games, to just not publish games. And no, we're not just talking about Call of Duty. You're clipping this? Yeah, I'm sure this stream will be clipped to oblivion, but we should, I will remember the stream, just for the simple fact that if I'm correct in the end, we'll revisit this. If I'm wrong in the end, we'll revisit it. But I'll tell you right now, man, this future is looking fascinating to me for multiple reasons. But I got to read these super chats. I appreciate you guys waiting patiently. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. Ice Rezo, or hold on. Benino says 11th spot on your pack of games is insane for a new IP. I guess. Like, look, it's not horrible, but it's just, dude, I'm sorry, man. Anybody who's looking at Starfield, it is a new IP, but come on, man. Like, we're just gonna pretend like it didn't have the, you know, it had something, it had a DNA there that this is why, like, you have to have some balls to call Starfield a potential game of the generation, knowing it's a new intellectual property. You only do that when there's DNA there that tells you, oh yeah, this is a new IP, but there's that Bethesda magic, right? You got to have balls to have that mentality towards a new IP. So it depends on how you view it. Starfield hitting the number 11 spot, if you see that as that's really good for a new IP, okay, I'm not here to say it's bad. I'm just saying that's not game of the generation material. That's not even game of the year material. Like, that should have been at least in the top 10. But you know what? It doesn't fucking surprise me, man. It doesn't, because you're talking, like, I'm realizing that the people I'm saying this to, or a certain group of people that I'm saying this to, like, dude, they're the same people that were positive Starfield would have been up for nomination for Game of the Year. They were positive that the game would have probably gotten at least at minimum a 90 or 89 or something on Metacritic. And they've just been wrong over and over again. And they're wrong here too, or at least some of them were. Some of them were, where it's like the game is not going to reach its sales potential because it's launching on Game Pass. That's just the fact. Like, that's just the reality. It would be at probably number 8 or number 7 if if the only way people could purchase this game was for $70 and not get it through Game Pass. It's just the way it is, man. But that's the thing. Is that bad for Microsoft? I can't tell you. Because the only question that really matters in this context is, what was Microsoft expecting? Is Microsoft pleased? Dude, Microsoft might be pleased to see, oh, it's actually at number 11? Wow. Well, there we go. That's good. Hey, we'll take that. Yeah, that could, because you know what? They're also thinking, how many subscribers did we get from Game Pass? I'll fucking tell you right now. Listen, man. August 2023, it leaks out. Over 30 million subscribers for Game Pass. So it must have been in like the low 30, like 30 million, 31 million, 32, something like that. Dude, if you're telling me the only, like, Starfield basically gained like 1 or 2 million more subs, because apparently now it's at 33 million. I don't know how you could not see the problem. You know what I mean? I'm not even saying that in a way where it's like, oh, it failed. No, it's just like, if you're Microsoft, you're literally like, oh my God, we spent over $7 billion to secure a game like this, and it couldn't even get us at least like 5 million subs. It's like, that is a problem. That's a big problem. So we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with Game Pass. I'm not saying Microsoft's giving up on it. I don't think Microsoft's going to give up on Game Pass. I just think that they're going to, again, shift their strategy where over time it might become clear that maybe Game Pass really isn't the be-all, end-all for Microsoft anymore. It's a part of what they do, and it's a relevant part of what they do, but it's not the be-all, end-all anymore. Let's see how many subs they get with Call of Duty. I'll tell you what, I think they'll get subs with Call of Duty, but I think people are just too conditioned to buy. I know that sounds silly, but I really do think, like, I think we might be surprised to see that Call of Duty's still like in the top 3 when it comes to sales every year, even when it's on Game Pass, because you're talking about an audience that has literally been conditioned to it's a yearly expense that they're paying. In fact, I would argue that Microsoft is probably hoping people are just buying that shit rather than coming to Game Pass for it. Like, I bet you that's what they're hoping, because they probably have more to gain probably in that regard. But maybe not. I mean, that could be what turns the tide for Game Pass, but I don't know if Microsoft is convinced. It doesn't seem like they are. Ice Razor, you're saying MBG, EA, and Ubisoft have similar subscription services to Microsoft. Their goal is to push consumers to be digital. What benefit Microsoft gets from a mobile store for them to pursue it aggressively? Well, see, that to me, that's where things get kind of, I don't want to say, well, they do kind of get messy, because it's not like Microsoft is going to say, yeah, we don't care about our storefront anymore. I mean, their storefront is critical to them. The storefront that Microsoft has for Xbox is critical to them, in that it's been there since the 360 days. It's only grown since then. But I do think that from the day that Microsoft decided we're going to create something like Game Pass, I think it automatically kind of, like, a contradiction was also created there. It's an option, and the options are fine. And I'm just saying, like, you're asking what benefit does Microsoft get from a mobile store, like for them to pursue a mobile store aggressively. I don't know, because there's already so many different mobile storefronts established. There's already many different storefronts. I think Microsoft is likely just going to look at everything they do with their own ecosystem as an option, not as the priority, not as the monopoly, like the only go-to. I think they're just going to look at it as an option. You know, where they can keep all the profit. Yeah, they will. That is the big win for them, is they get to keep the lion's share. But that's the thing. If you're scaling up the way Microsoft is scaling up, this is exactly why they will not ever abandon their own ecosystem, and it will always remain an option in the same way that the console will. You can buy as many publishers and developers as you want. That's not going to translate to people. Like, dude, has anybody not realized that, looking at this data for Game Pass and looking at the data for Xbox consoles sold, don't people realize that this is all during a year where it was looking more and more likely that Microsoft was going to get Activision Blizzard? And I'm just saying, like, it at least up front, it just didn't do anything for them. In terms of, like, did it sell more consoles? No. Did the potential of getting ABK games into Game Pass, like, just drive up Game Pass subs? No, it seemingly didn't. It just didn't do anything. So it's like, when you're Microsoft and you kind of realize, like, are we looking down the barrel of a reality where we make most of our money from Call of Duty from PlayStation? And if that's our reality, what the fuck does that mean for our own ecosystem? Well, from my perspective, this is what it means. Make that money, and hey, whoever decides to buy it in your ecosystem, in your storefront, you get 100% of that. That's just the icing on the cake. If you can grow that, great. That would be great. But if you can't grow that, it doesn't mean you're not going to succeed. That's the point. Both of these things need to exist for Microsoft, because Microsoft is not in a position to leverage their own storefront. They're in the opposite position, frankly. So the simple answer to your question is, what do they have to gain? They have domination to gain. Like, we don't have to worry about giving a 30% cut. We get 100%. Of course, that's why these companies want to go all digital. Of course, but it's just never going to be that way for anybody, as far as I can tell. Like, it's just not a reality, I think, for any of these companies. Like, no company can just get 100% of it all the time. Like, there's going to be something there that's like, well, it's going to get in the way of that. And I think that's a good thing. That is, in a way, the very competition I think we kind of speak to, right? That's crazy. Lights, you're saying I asked my cousin who's been on Xbox since the very beginning if he was going to play Starfield. He didn't even know what it was. I'm not going to lie, that's kind of funny. But you do have to wonder how far does that go, you know? Abraham, I'm sorry. I'm trying to pronounce your name correctly. Member for 5 months, you're saying if they really wanted to get sales, would they not just get rid of Game Pass? That means it is still part of their strategy. Well, here's how I look at it. Microsoft is, I think that they've made a decision, and to me, that's clear. I don't blame anybody for looking at, like, this fact that we're acknowledging right now, that Game Pass is still here. It's not seemingly going anywhere. You know, Microsoft hasn't made any announcements for it that it's going anywhere. So the assumption is that it's still going to be a part of their strategy. And I think it's just as simple as this. I think Microsoft realized very recently, specifically with the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, because think about this. Starfield, the big hyped up game for them that was supposed to do juggernaut numbers for them, released at around the same time that the Activision Blizzard deal went through. And when you think about the thorn, what was the biggest thorn in Microsoft's side other than the cloud gaming? Of course, there was the cloud gaming part, but it was also the FTC, kind of up their ass with like, but what about what you said about Bethesda? Like, look, Redfall and Starfield exclusive. And you could tell like that was annoying the shit out of Microsoft because they're like, will you guys shut the fuck up already? Like we saw that. Like they really were getting annoyed at the opposition that they were facing. Now, if Microsoft's defense of, well, look, Starfield is going to be exclusive because we said to our audience that some games are going to be exclusive. It's on a case-by-case basis. And we need that to drive Game Pass and sales. If that truly was their reasoning, which obviously that was their reasoning, and it didn't reach any of the numbers that they had projected, then at that point, in my opinion, it seems obvious that they have to not completely walk away from the Game Pass strategy, but just deprioritize it. Where it's like, all right, listen, this dream of hitting 100+ million subs is not anywhere. It's not on the horizon, not even close. We have no idea if it's even possible. So rather than continue to spend tens of billions of dollars in the name of Game Pass, we have to spend it in the name of something that is a bit more of a guarantee. And that is, wait for it, hold on now, game sales. Yes, that's right. Buying video games, spending money on video games, getting consumers to buy your product. Turns out that the very thing that brought any success to any video game companies is still the same thing bringing financial success to video game companies. There is a reason why Jim Ryan said, hey, it seems to me like, I'm probably misquoting him, but I'm just paraphrasing. Unanimously, publishers don't really like subservices. Gee, I really wonder why that could be. I mean, one really has to take a step back and think, why could that be? Could it be because, I don't know, they're a business and they're in it to make money? And it turns out that subscription services and dropping hugely expensive games into a subservice doesn't translate to making money? It's just, it is so painfully obvious by this point that I don't know what to tell Xbox players other than Microsoft would really like you to buy their games. They would also really like you to subscribe to Game Pass, but at the end of the day, there's just not enough people doing either. So what do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to spend another $25-30 billion in the name of Game Pass? Or do you think they're going to spend another $25-30 billion in the name of, we're going to fucking sell games and make money? Duranko with a $5 super chat. He says, if you know gaming history, you could see this coming. It reminds me of Sega's final days. You don't have sales like this and just stay the course. Exactly. Like, dude, the amount of people that I've seen come my way the past couple months where it's like, look at how dire it is for Sony and PlayStation. It's like, look, are things perfect for Sony? Absolutely not. Sony has their own problems. But this is only going to help them. Believe it. Like, to me, that is the funniest shit about all of this, is that what everything Microsoft is saying can literally only serve to help Sony, because Sony has no chance at this point of achieving that goal of being a massive, scaled up publisher with like, oh yeah, we're taking on Ubisoft now. I don't think that is a remote possibility for Sony, because it's like, dude, you got to figure out how to make your business more profitable before you think about buying publishers. You got to worry about your acquisition of Bungie. It's not for, as far as I can tell, it's not a reality for Sony right now. So knowing that was Sony's biggest threat is, oh my God, our fucking competitor is buying publishers. They're still making a console and they're pushing their subscription service. Their subscription service goes against our business model. And now it seems like Microsoft is like, guys, what I'm trying to say is I think the message is going to be communicated to Sony by Microsoft that you don't really have to worry. Like, because we're not after, like, you guys do your, look, at this point in time, it might even be in Microsoft's best interest for Sony to, like, keep doing well. Because think about it. If Microsoft says, we want to make money on Call of Duty, well, guess what? A lot of motherfucking PlayStation players playing Call of Duty. Like, that's where you're going to make a lot of money. So it is literally in Microsoft's best interest that Sony doesn't drop the ball there. But you want to then start putting games potentially like Sea of Thieves, some more of your live service games, onto PlayStation. Like, literally at this point, it is in Microsoft's and Sony's best interest for the PS5 to not fail. And I know how some like Xbox fans are going to hear that. They're like, "What the what? What did this man just say? This delusional, insane fanboy?" Well, let me ask you: how does Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard look, knowing how much money they paid for Call of Duty? If the PlayStation console fails, and Sony's fan base and player base erodes, what happens then? It's what I'm saying is not out there at all. It's actually just the way it is right now. Like it's literally the reality right now. So it's what you're saying here, Steranko. You don't have sales like this and just stay the course. Especially if you're a company like Microsoft. Keep in mind, I also want to throw this in there because people still want to ignore this, or if not ignore it, just kind of pretend like it isn't a thing or wasn't. Microsoft shareholders were literally calling for the execution of the Xbox division. Okay, like Satya Nadella got to a point where he's like, I need to know why we keep this alive. So they gave Phil a chance. And they gave the Xbox, fan base, I guess, a chance with Game Pass. Game Pass numbers are not cutting it anymore. So now they have to go to Plan C. And I think Plan C is the one that is going to be the one where Microsoft really finds that fucking, that level of profitability that they've been always been. I mean, again, I feel like Satya says it himself. He's like,
and gaming, that was up, we've been at gaming, we love gaming. In fact, Flight Simulator was created before even Windows.
Flight Simulator.
But we were number 3, number 4, and with now Activision, I think we have a chance of being a good publisher.
It's just like, that's what he wants, dude. He wants Flight Sim, and he wants to be a publisher. Flight Sim confirmed for PS5. Let's go. Give us a Satya emote. Yeah, I'll have to do that. You're saying all you care about is what these companies are willing to offer me as a gamer. That's why I'm saying, dude, if you are approaching this from the consumer standpoint, this is glorious for you. It is. Like, it really is, because the only thing Microsoft is communicating to you right now is, hey, we have Game Pass, obviously, but we're going to start bringing our games, to other places. So if you, basically what Microsoft is communicating to the consumers, if you didn't come to us, at least to a certain extent, we're going to come to you. Like, literally anywhere you are. That's a win, dude. Like, from the consumer standpoint, that's a win. That is not a loss. That is not a loss for Xbox fans. That's not a loss for PlayStation fans, Nintendo fans, PC. It's not a loss for anybody. It's a loss for the fanboys, maybe, but truth be told, it's just it's the exact same reason why I said earlier, dude, if Final Fantasy goes multi-plat, that's not a loss for me. You know, it's one less exclusive, sure, but like, fuck, man. At the end of the day, I'm gonna play Final Fantasy regardless. We're getting there, guys. We're making our way to the end times of competition as we knew it, as we've known it in the gaming industry. It's changing. It's evolving. Competition will still be here, but it is evolving, man. Ice Razor, you're saying MMOs are the holy grail of live service games. Microsoft is going after Square, and they would have had the 3 most popular MMOs. You're saying they would have the 3 most popular MMOs in making money. I think this is why, I think you're right. This is why Sony's going after it too, man. Like, Sony is going after this Horizon MMO with NCSoft, and they're like experts with MMOs. So I think you are right. It seems like there is a lot of money to be made, like, consistently with successful MMOs. We'll see if they end up doing it. Sony, that is. But yeah, Microsoft, again, man. So I'll answer this again. I am streaming the Xbox event. It's going to be a separate stream after this one. Competition might change, MBG, but your messed up pronunciation won't. You're damn right. You're damn right it won't. Dude, we don't want Microsoft's trash games on PlayStation. Well, hold on now. Hold on. Look, I'm of the mind, like, I'll take any Xbox game on PlayStation. I'm not saying I'll play it, but I think that's a great thing. I mean, I can't complain, man. Like, I don't want to buy an Xbox because I don't care. I just don't have a desire to buy an Xbox. I'm totally cool with PlayStation. So it's like, if Microsoft starts dropping games on PlayStation, I'm not saying I will play them, but I might, hey, I'm on the PlayStation Store. I'll go look at it and see. Maybe I'll give it a shot. I don't know. But it's like a game like Hellblade. Look, do I think Hellblade one day will release on PlayStation at this point? I do. Like, I do think eventually, yeah, if Microsoft is serious, which it seems they are, about headed in this direction, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But I'm not waiting. Dude, I'm going to play Hellblade on, through Game Pass or buy it on PC or fuck, even buy an Xbox to play it potentially. I'm not going to wait, Maybe I'll replay it. I will, but here's the thing. If Hellblade 2 comes to PlayStation like way later, like at the end of the PS5's life cycle, proper PS5 port physical version, I'll rebuy it. Like, I'll double dip. I'll buy that game physically for PS5 and I'll platinum it. So what does Microsoft lose? They don't lose anything, dude. They just have more to gain. I'm bound to buy an Xbox once Hellblade 2 comes out. 18 May, thank you for the 20 spot. Man, you're saying, isn't this the way it was always going to go? As we transition to digital media and increase acceptance of PC, won't the system you play become less relevant? I know iPhone stands who will choose Spotify over iMusic. Well, that's the thing. I'm zooming out completely for Microsoft here. And to be fair, over the course of this conversation, I have not completely zoomed out for Sony or Nintendo. I feel more comfortable doing it for Nintendo or Sony and not Nintendo because I don't really follow Nintendo that closely, not as closely as Sony and Microsoft. But I will tell you this, yes. The answer is yes, at least to a certain extent. These uncomfortable, awkward, weird transitions were always going to happen. Again, it was never a matter of if, it was a matter of when. And it might not go exactly the way I'm predicting it or the way you're predicting it or the way anybody's predicting it, but things are changing nonetheless. And we are at that inflection point where it's like, yeah, Microsoft is seemingly the one that's beginning to, they're the first one that's like, we're going to change this up now. And we're not going to expect Sony or Nintendo to, because we're not really competing with them, but we're going to change it up and we're going to see what they end up doing. I asked this question on my Twitter the other day. Do you think Sony will ever stop making home consoles? And funny enough, somebody was like, dude, they still make a Walkman. And that made me realize, okay, maybe Sony will never actually stop making consoles, but I could in the long term, like I'm talking the long-term future here, not the PlayStation 6 generation, maybe beyond that, maybe not even beyond that, maybe beyond the PlayStation 7 generation. It's impossible to gauge the time frames on this. Yes, we are headed in that direction where the things that Microsoft is beginning to do, Sony will do. Not to the same extent, but they're already doing it. And it could change. It depends. I think it all hinges on the success of the PlayStation console. I truly believe this. I think that as long as the PlayStation console sells really well, like the PS4 did, like the PS5 is, Sony's not going to change anything. They're going to keep releasing games exclusively for that console, make that money, and then release it on PC afterwards at some point in time. And they're going to keep their live service games at PS5 and PC. But if the day does come, because if what people have said and continue to say does turn out to be true, that eventually consoles will become obsolete, man. Like, people are going to move on from them, and possibly even PC to an extent, like just physical hardware, native hardware, that is. Or maybe phones evolve to a point where it's like, that is a PS5. You guys, you get what I'm saying? We go in that direction. We could see console sales eventually fall off a cliff. We could see both Sony and Nintendo failing to sell, enough consoles where it's like, okay, back in 2028, I'm saying back in I know this sounds fucking crazy, but we're in the year like 2034 or some shit. Back in the year 2028, Sony was coming off of the PS5 selling easily over 100 million units. Well, we're in the middle of the PlayStation 6, and this shit still isn't even at 40 million. Sounds unreal. To me, that sounds too soon. That sounds too soon. That sounds unrealistic. I think the PS6 is going to be just as successful as the PS5. But eventually, Sony's going to hit a wall with console sales. At least I think so. And it's not going to be their fault. It's not even going to be our fault. It's just going to be new generations of gamers grow up, and more, these younger generations, they're growing up with different technology, different capability, and the day will come, as sad as it makes me to say this, where there's going to be a generation of gamers where it's like, buying a fucking console, what? Like, dude, I can play PlayStation and Xbox on my TV, like I can when I watch Netflix. That's the future. I hate that, because that's like, it just doesn't compute for me, but that is the future. It may not be 10 years from now. It may be 20 years from now. Could be longer than that. It could be even longer than that, but that is the future. And when that day comes, Sony will have to rethink their approach to an extent, because it's like, okay, you're not selling hardware anymore. So what breathing room do you have now in terms of making your games, more accessible? What does that look like? Basically, what I'm trying to say is, what happened to the Xbox consoles eventually will happen to the PlayStation consoles and the Nintendo consoles. And I know that we, as console fanboys, do not want to accept this or hear this. Truth is, we'll probably be so old at that point. I don't know that we'll care that much. We'll still be sad, but that's just the reality. It is. And Microsoft, you can understand why you're saying that's pessimistic AF. Here, to be clear, I think there will still be consoles, but I think it's going to be like, we're going to get a statistic in the year like 2040 or like 2038, where it's like, we're going to be looking at the NPD, and it's like PlayStation and Nintendo consoles, and maybe I don't know if Xbox, I imagine Xbox won't be making consoles then. They account for less than 2% of like all video game sales or something, because everybody's playing on the cloud or on their phone or some shit. You know what I mean? That, I think, is an inevitability. Again, I don't know what year that's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And we don't even know what fucking games are going to look like then, right? Or who knows? For all we know, there could be some kind of like insane paradigm shift with VR or AR where it's like, fuck consoles, bro. VR and AR is where it's at. You know, like, so a transition to traditional games will be so, you know, a transition to cloud gaming for traditional games will be so easily doable because it's like, yeah, we're busy in playing GTA 7 in fucking VR, bro, with our PlayStation glasses, VR glasses or something, or our Xbox VR glasses. I'm just saying, like, that, you talk about the long-term future, this is the shit we're looking at, okay? I'm not the one creating this, but this is where we're headed. We got JD Gamer. JD Gamer, first off, I saw you dropped a ton of super chats, bro, so I apologize. I'm taking forever to get to them. But JD Gamer comes in and drops 5 more memberships. He's keeping the membership train going, guys. We are at 56 members. Thank you so much for the continued support, continually dropping memberships. I'm going to add that to the counter. We are making our way to our third goal, which is crazy to say, of 75 members. So thank you, guys. By the way, do me a favor, because I'm sure this stream is getting bombarded with dislikes. Hit that like button, all right? Help me out. Help the stream out. Let me know you enjoy the stream. Let me see how many haters are disliking it. I'm just kidding. I know not everybody who dislikes the streams is a hater. Yeah, look at that. Dude, this stream has almost 50 dislikes. People don't want to hear it, bro. People don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear me talk about Microsoft because they don't like what I have to say. Well, that's too fucking bad. So, guys, hit that like button. Come on. Hit that like button. Show these people we're gonna keep this like to dislike ratio at a healthy state. 286 likes. Let's get to 300. To be honest, though, I'm not even kidding. There's at least one person, maybe two. I can't figure it out. There are people out here, or at least a person who they have a bunch of bot accounts and they mass dislike my streams. I guess to try to like hurt it in the algorithm. Dude, their dislikes get removed. There's like 30 dislikes that get removed for each stream. So make sure their efforts are in vain, people. Okay? Every time you hit that like button, you're making their life more difficult. So I know, what a life, right? It's very weird, dude. I could understand why they would do it if YouTube didn't automatically remove them, but it's like the fact that they automatically get removed is like, I mean, you're literally wasting your time. I don't know why you would even bother. Saying report it. I probably should report it, yeah. I don't know if YouTube would. YouTube would probably just tell me, like, we automatically take care of that, so. But yeah, I've been keeping track of this because I'm like, dude, how the hell do I have so many dislikes on some of my streams? Like, it like doesn't even make sense to the proportion of viewers I have, where I'm like, this just doesn't add up or make any sense. And then a day later, I come back, it's like half of those dislikes are just gone. Like, that's wow. Wow. All right, so thank you guys for hitting a like button. We have Lone Wolf Gamer. He says, I've liked my time with Xbox, but I just enjoy PlayStation more. Despite the first party lineup being slim, there's still plenty coming to keep us all happy. I agree. Look, that's the thing, man, is I'm not, like, this is a version of Xbox that I can actually get behind if they're serious about it. Like, if Microsoft is like, look, we just want to buy publishers to make money, but we're just going to be multi-platform. That's great. Because that's like, that is, to me, that's fair game at that point, where the whole idea of Microsoft or any other, or even Sony, right? Like, buying publishers and locking those games up. I mean, obviously, it's a fucking pipe dream for fanboys, but it's like, in reality, that just blows. And I get it. It's like, well, Sony does that with third-party games. It's like, they do, but guys, we've talked about this before, where if this is true, like, if this really is a necessary thing for Microsoft to do, you're going to see Sony signing less exclusivity deals. You know why? Because it's going to get more and more expensive to sign those deals, to the point where Sony's going to be like, this isn't worth it. We might be on the verge of that. And that wouldn't be a bad thing. Like if Microsoft, it could be a bad thing for the PlayStation console, but that is determined by PlayStation Studios output. So I guess I'm just saying I like this version of Xbox because it's a version that makes the most sense with what they're trying to do, where I don't have to have this negative, like, kind of gross feeling towards Microsoft where it's like, wow, you guys are buying publishers and then straight up lying and saying, oh yeah, we're just trying to bring more games to everybody, but in reality you're just trying to withhold games from PlayStation and Nintendo. But it's like if they start bringing games to PlayStation and Nintendo, then it's like, oh well, fuck, I was wrong. Like, you guys actually, that was your goal. Devil Shooter, you're saying you disagree. You think the lack of competition will hurt us. So here's the thing. I think the need for competition will actually remain, but like I said earlier, it will transform. In the console space, that will be my big concern. Nintendo's doing another generation of a handheld hybrid. Sony's going to release a PS5 Pro and presumably a PlayStation 6. Knowing potentially that Microsoft is just not a viable competitor in the console space anymore, and they don't really have to worry about Nintendo because they're doing something completely different. I want to say that Sony will be smart enough. I pray they are. If they find themselves in that situation, to not be dumbasses and make very stupid decisions that are driven purely by greed. Now, maybe I know that there are people like, oh, they absolutely will, but it's like, well, think about this. If Sony makes a PlayStation 6 knowing that they won't have maybe much competition from Xbox, or let's just say no competition from Xbox at all, none from Nintendo because Nintendo's doing a handheld hybrid, what would be the worst case scenario? What I think the worst case scenario would be is not them putting out an $800 console. I think it's quite the opposite. I think the worst case scenario is they put out a PlayStation 6 that's very affordable, like maybe even like $400 or $500, maybe not $400, but $500, just like the PS5. But it's like the upgrade is questionable. It's like we just got a PS5 Pro in 2024. The shit's amazing. What exactly is the PlayStation 6 doing that the PS5 Pro isn't? And I think that's, I just think it's either going to be that or Sony will be forced to create some kind of absurdly expensive piece of hardware that's truly cutting edge in the year 2028 in order to properly differentiate itself and stand out from the PS5. But by making that really expensive piece of hardware, something akin to like the PlayStation 3, Sony's already been down that road. I don't think they're going to walk that road again, even if they have no competition or very minimal. So it is a concern, like it is in the console space. So when I say the competition is going to transform, the competition in the game space doesn't change. I firmly believe that because it's like, listen, again, I don't think every single Xbox game will come to PlayStation like that. It'll be, again, happen over time, kind of like the way Sony handles PC, but it will condition a lot of people to be like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll just wait for it. It doesn't mean that these companies are not going to leverage their own content. I actually do, and this is an important thing for me to highlight, Microsoft going full third party, to me, does not, like, there is a caveat with that. And that is they can at certain times, just like they are now, pick and choose. Maybe a game like Blade isn't exclusive because it's with Disney and they're like, we want to maximize sales. But maybe a game like Elder Scrolls is for a while, right? Maybe it's because, well, that's our game and we want to maximize. If you want to wait for it. But we're going to use this right now to get people over here. And if that doesn't drive massive numbers, that's okay. It drives some numbers. When it's done driving any amount of numbers, then we put it out there, right? And so it's like, I almost kind of look at it as, you look at these different streaming services these days. I don't think that's happening. To be honest, I don't follow them closely enough. Maybe you can let me know. As far as I'm aware, I don't think Netflix is taking their original content and like putting it on competing streaming services. As far as I'm aware. Is that a thing that happens? I don't think so. But has it gone the other way, though? I feel like I've seen that. I feel like I've seen other streaming services that are not Netflix, like, or maybe that's an exchange of licensing there. So maybe it's a little bit different. But you're saying HBO Max is doing that. Okay. Yeah, so there we go. You're saying no, but all the others are doing it. Okay. Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm seeing here, where it's like they will leverage what they have for a certain period of time, but it will be timed because it's only going to matter for a limited amount of time. And once it stops mattering, then it's free to go everywhere so they can extract as much out of it as they possibly can. I think that will still be prominent for Xbox, for PlayStation, and obviously for Nintendo, no matter what, because that to me is a layer of competition that will need to exist to justify it, at least for Sony, right? Like, you're a platform holder. And that is where it's like, well, Microsoft is a platform holder too, but they are, again, man, Microsoft seems to be not as focused on being a platform holder as much as they're focused on being a third, like a major juggernaut publisher. But they could potentially thread this needle, and that could be how they do it. But I think it's going to happen. I think even one day we could see this with Sony a little bit more. I just don't know. I don't know, man. Could the day ever come where Sony's like, man, we got to try to get some games on Switch or some shit? I don't know. Let me see. We got Anonymous Boss. He says the bottom line is Microsoft makes good make good games. Period. It would have been so easy. That's what Nintendo does. MBG, you're correct. Tell the bots what the real executives at Microsoft and a $1 trillion company think. Well, I appreciate that, Anonymous Boss. Yeah, one of the craziest things that was ever said by any video game executive was Phil Spencer saying it's just not, people have this idea that if we just make great games, and he was like, it's just not that simple. Like, that's not just going to turn things around. It's like, what? Like that to me is probably the biggest blunder that Phil Spencer ever made in terms of PR speak and like him talking directly to the consumers, where it's like that's just objectively false. Now, granted, maybe it couldn't save the Xbox console now. It's a little too late for that, but it's still imperative that you make good games. Like, if you buying Activision Blizzard, like, you got to make sure they make good games. Bethesda, you got to make sure they make good games. Like, you can't just like making your games good is all that matters at the end of the day. Like, that is it. That is it, man. That is the be all end all, because if you can't make good games that people enjoy, you're just never going to make it in any capacity in this industry. And so, that logic applies not just to Microsoft, but to Sony, to Nintendo. And again, man, it's like we could just end up seeing in the very long run a situation where the competition between these companies is just, well, they made this game. This logo is on this game, and this game is top tier, upper echelon, and that's what allows them to stand out. Maybe that is the level of exclusivity, right? Well, I don't even know that the term exclusivity would make sense in that case, but the level of recognition just maybe goes that far. I don't know. Again, thinking very long term, but I try to definitely get that point across over the course of the stream, is that, like, if you're trying to understand some of Microsoft's moves, you have to imagine yourself being in a boardroom with some very rich and well-paid executives that are running the most valuable company in the world. And you just have to imagine, like, Like whatever you're thinking of saying and presenting, imagine saying it in front of them and how they might react to that. You know what I mean? Based off of what we know. And that's the thing. We only know so much. Microsoft knows the whole story. Microsoft knows exactly how many subscribers Game Pass got for Starfield or from Starfield. They know exactly how many. So if you got like 2.5 million new subscribers from Starfield and only half of them remain subscribed after they're done playing it, you're going to walk into the board of Microsoft, present that data and be like, but I think we still need to triple down on this business model. Like, dude, they're going to look at you and be like, what the are you kidding me? This isn't working at all. You know, like they're going to look at you, they're going to laugh you out of the room. They're going to say you better have another plan. At least that's what I would imagine. All right. So Anonymous Boss, thank you for that. We have Monkey Power saying, think of Xbox games as the flood. The more games they put in the PlayStation economy, the more they infect our economy and make more money from PlayStation gamers. Holy shit. They're infecting the PlayStation economy, bro. Monkey Power, I love it. I love it. Shit's getting crazy over here for PlayStation. I mean, dude, Xbox fanboys will be able to say that. When you see people like I'm waiting for the announcement if it happens. Sea of Thieves is coming to PlayStation. I can't wait to put out the tweet. Are you buying Sea of Thieves for PlayStation? Or are you going to play Sea of Thieves on PlayStation? And, you know, you're going to see people say, yeah. And you're going to see, like, fanboys responding to them being like, I thought you didn't like Xbox games. And so it's like, see, it no matter what, man, I'm telling you, the war can be over, but there's always going to be those people hanging in, you know, like, in the trees hiding or, you know, still thinking that the war is being waged. And it's like, dude, you know, do you guys know the reference I'm making right now? I think it was a Japanese fighter from World War II. He literally was like in a tree for like 20 years or some crazy shit, and he thought World War II was still going on. That's why I was using the tree reference, because that was a real thing, and they were like, bro, the war's been over for years, and he's like, really? It's like, dude, what the fuck? That is insane. But I imagine that's basically what, you know, the most hardcore fanboys are going to be like for both PlayStation and Xbox, you know? That's basically what it's going to be like. So, but here's the thing. There is hope, because even that soldier, he was a little bit late, very late, but he still came down from the tree and got to experience peace of some kind. All right. All right, let me see. You're saying they're already doing that when they say PlayStation guys are port begging? That's how they cope with it, man. I'll be honest. Like, you know, I see people throw the word cope around a lot, and I get it. Everybody's got to cope here and there. You know, we all have to cope in certain situations at certain times, but believe me, this is their way of coping with, like, this is, again, the goalpost, I would say, is moved, but it's just non-existent anymore. And it's just their way of trying to, you know, frame things in a certain way. It's like, dude, nobody's begging for Microsoft's games, dude. Like, people are, again, I feel like a broken record saying this, was like, yeah, people are open to the idea. Like, I assure you, there's probably a ton of PlayStation players that if Microsoft brought Halo Infinite over, they'd be like, oh yeah, I'll give it a shot. Yeah. But the moment you're like, you gonna go play it on PC? No. What about buying Xbox? No. Yeah, that's not begging for anything. It's just common sense. It's like if God of War were to release on Xbox, I know it's crazy, but there are some Xbox players who didn't buy, you know, who don't buy PlayStations to play God of War. They don't care. But it's like if Sony said, "Hey, we're going to drop God of War on Xbox," they would be like, "Okay, yeah, maybe I'll try it out." That's surprising, you know? Like I didn't expect that. Sure, I'll try it. It's just common sense, dude. It's, you know, people try to turn it into something that's not. So thank you for that, Monkey Power. Our JD Gaming, or JD Gamer, sorry. So here's what I'm going to do. JD Gamer, you have a lot of super chats. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read any super chats that were given between yours so I can keep all of your super chats cohesive into one long chat here. Okay? So let me read Chris Brown. He says, "I think this year determines if Xbox goes third party." I want to say this real quick because I didn't acknowledge this. Chris, you might be right in that this could be a big test for Microsoft. Imagine they port these games over, at least a couple of them, and they fucking flop. What then? Like, imagine they just flop horribly. Where it's like, dude, PlayStation players are not buying Sea of Thieves or Hi-Fi Rush. Switch players aren't either. I mean, what then? You know, I could imagine if that situation occurs, I could see them being like, you know what, never mind. It ain't even worth it. Because porting games does require time and money. You know, it does require resource. But I don't know. Something tells me they wouldn't flop. You're saying if they brought Forts over, it wouldn't flop? Yeah, I don't think so. Sea of Thieves, I don't know. Sea of Thieves is an interesting case. Like, I don't know if Sea of Thieves would flop. Because it's like, I don't know how many PlayStation 5 players would really realistically want to play Sea of Thieves, or Switch players. Maybe there's a big demographic that I don't know about. Could be a lot. Novinzer, you're saying this is like your aunt and uncle dying, and now your weird cousins have to live with you and share your room and eat your food. LOL. Oh my god, dude, Novinzer, bro, Novinzer going crazy with his super chat over here. And then really quick, we have Twilight Knight 06 saying the future of consoles depends on must-play true exclusives. That's the only reason Nintendo still exists. If you want to play Mario, etc., buy Switch. We will see, man. That it could be that simple. It truly could be that simple. But JD Gamer, I'm going to read your super chats now, man. All right, I'm going to read them all just straight through. So, starting here saying the problem with Microsoft now is the same as it's always been. They are a data-driven company, and unfortunately for them, that doesn't allow them to capture the hearts and minds of consumers. It didn't with Zune, Windows Phone. To the console market, you must capture the hearts and minds of the gamer, but to win in gaming, that's not necessary. Xbox can't win without the console market, bottom line. No one roots for a loser. It's not enough for Xbox to have the same game as PlayStation. They need to play Sony's game and buy up all the third-party exclusives. PlayStation players aren't going to leave PlayStation unless they can't get a game that they want on PlayStation. To get gamers off of PlayStation, Xbox has to starve them of content and dominate them in the way that they haven't since the early days of the Xbox 360. Developers, players, and retailers must all choose Xbox after ABK, Xbox / Game Pass are now more profitable than ever before, and it makes more than anyone else other than Tencent in gaming, including PlayStation. Microsoft / Xbox is both a platform holder and a publisher. The most profitable path forward is for Microsoft to publish a limited number of ABK games on other platforms, but to keep all Xbox game studios and Bethesda games exclusive. And you say no Hellblade or Starfield on PlayStation, but you will get Call of Duty, maybe Crash, Spyro, ABK games, and some Square / Sega games once Xbox buys them, however that goes. So, JD Gamer, first off, I want to just say thank you for all of the super chats. It's very generous of you. There's a lot of super chats there, and I really appreciate that. So, basically, what you're saying is that you believe Microsoft is they're going to try to have their cake and eat it too. And to be fair, I felt this way many times as well, but Swizz, you think JD Gamer's 100% correct? It could, yeah. That's why I'm saying, or I said earlier, that I am prepared to, if it's a couple months from now or a year from now, to look back on the stream and be like, holy shit, I was totally wrong. I was totally wrong. I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be a little bit surprised, like, damn, I really thought that I had this pegged, but no, I wouldn't be shocked. My only thing here with this, though, is the idea of having your cake and eating it too implies that there needs to be some kind of like threshold, you know? That like the only way Microsoft can still have everything you just listed, like be the most profitable, make the most amount of money, be number one in gaming, that the only way they can really do this is they have to, like you're saying, starve certain platforms and certain audiences of certain content at certain times when it makes the most sense. And even I just said not that long ago that that could absolutely be how they decide to operate. I mean, it is true, right? That we're hearing rumors of a game like Hi-Fi Rush, of a game like Sea of Thieves, but we're not hearing anything about Hellblade, about Starfield. I also said that I absolutely think Starfield will eventually come to PlayStation. Maybe this is truly the only piece of the puzzle missing that we need to wait for, right? Maybe I will be wrong in that Starfield will never see the light of day on PlayStation. It's just not going to happen. It's never going to exist on PlayStation. That's something Microsoft is always going to keep exclusive to Xbox. But a game like Avowed might be different. Maybe Avowed eventually will come to PlayStation. Why? Maybe it just makes more sense for some reason. But this is where I just... The only thing that I don't agree with here, with what you're saying, is I think once the message is conveyed by Microsoft, like when they rip the Band-Aid off, essentially. All right, let me back up. Once the crack in the dam is revealed, it's going to burst, and there's no stopping it. You know, like once that happens, it's over. And I say this because once Microsoft makes that move, and that's a big question, if this is going to happen, I know people are like, oh, Sea of Thieves, not a big deal. Game came out in 2018. Hi-Fi Rush, I mean, it clearly didn't sell very well on Xbox. I understand it's just two games and they're older, right? And they're not like super relevant right now on Xbox or for Xbox. But once that happens, again, it's like you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You now Microsoft just sent a clear message to everyone. There's a chance if you wait, you'll eventually get it. Just like Sony did to PC players. They sent that message where the genie's out of the bottle. Once we announced Horizon Zero Dawn is coming to PC and we released it, from that moment forward, there were players, not a lot, but there were some players that were like, you know what? Maybe I'll just wait then. Let's see how far this really goes. And you know what? It turns out it went pretty far. It's still going pretty far. You know, you're about to get Horizon Forbidden West on PC with a bunch of features. You're going to get Spider-Man 2 eventually. So what I'm trying to say is that I don't think once Microsoft pulls the trigger and makes this move, it's going to work in the way where it's like, we're going to pick and choose. I think it's just going to be, it'll come out for our console and our ecosystem first. Once it stops selling, and once it reaches its peak and it just starts going down, we're going to put it out everywhere. We won't know the exact time. That's the thing. It just like PlayStation, we don't know exactly when. And it might not be everything as well, simply for the fact that it will take a lot of time and resource. Like, I think there are many other PlayStation games that would be on PC right now if Sony had the resources to port them over competently. They have one studio, that being Nixxes, that's dedicated to it, but they can't work on every game. You know? They're probably working on Ghost of Tsushima or something right now, or Bloodborne or something. You know, one can only hope, right? So I think, to be clear though, JD Gamer, like, you could be right. And I think if a lot of like Xbox players would probably lean more so in the direction of what you're saying, where it's like, I don't know, man. I don't think like Halo's coming to PlayStation. I don't think Gears is coming to PlayStation. I don't think Hellblade's coming to PlayStation. And I get that. Like, it is crazy to think that, because it's like that is Xbox, man. Like, but I see Base Cat in the chat. He's saying it's coming, and I just think that, like, I think there another factor that you're missing here is what I mentioned earlier, is the acquisition side of it. I think Microsoft is going to be squeezed, and they know they're going to be squeezed when the moment comes. Hey, we just got off the phone with Ubisoft. They want to fucking, like, this is going to happen. Like, they're next. They're next. They're our next target. This is going to happen. Oh, you know what? To be fair, maybe Ubisoft. I don't think Ubisoft can happen. Maybe because of the deal that they made with the cloud and Call of Duty. So let's just say, like, let's say Sega. A lot of people have believed for a while that that's the thing that's going to happen. Let's just say it's Sega, or let's say Microsoft does something fucking radical. Square Enix. And I know maybe it's unrealistic because a lot of people are like, no, they can't go after Japanese companies. You're saying, doesn't Microsoft do the squeezing? No, not in this regard. No, it's the opposite. The point is, they're going to go for a big publisher again eventually. And when they do, like, dude, they are going to have heat on them. It ain't even going to be funny. Like, and they know this. They're well aware that you think the FTC was going in hard now. Oh my God. Wait until Microsoft announces they want to acquire so-and-so next. They know this is coming. And this is why I think they are prepared to go all in. And I think it's just something they might do for the sake of avoiding massive problems down the road. So, to simplify what I'm trying to say, every move that Microsoft makes now, I think, is in the name of paving a clear, not so bumpy road, a smooth road to further acquisition in the name of Microsoft's ambition of being, as somebody labeled, I forget who labeled it earlier, a super publisher, right? And I think Microsoft has to have that locked and loaded, ready to go. I think they'll test. I think they will hold off at least a little bit, just to see. But I was telling you, man, the fucking moment they feel that heat, they're going to unload. And when they do, it's going to be like, yeah, we're fucking third party. We told you. Like, see? And what are the regulators going to do at that point? The regulators are going to not be able to do anything. Like, this is going to be Microsoft's way of disarming and dismantling the regulators, because what the regulators will have now is every single game that is, like, the regulators will be able to use Avowed, Indiana Jones, Hellblade, games right now, Starfield. They're going to be able to use that and say, Microsoft, you're still doing exclusives and you're still trying to buy publishers. And if Microsoft sees that as a potential roadblock, because I think what people are forgetting is Microsoft was very close to actually losing this deal with ABK. Now, let me ask you this. What do you think would have happened? What do you think Microsoft's path forward would have been if they lost ABK? I don't know. I mean, I imagine it wouldn't have been good. It would have been pretty bad for them. And I think that they really want to avoid that in the future. So I'm not saying that there's going to be some kind of big major announcement that we are going third party. I think this is how it's going to be done. Where it's listen, dude, if I was an Xbox fan right now, like that was my primary platform, and I was one of these people in these circles on the Xbox side of things, I don't know how the fuck you could go into today's developer direct and have any confidence that these games aren't going to eventually go to PlayStation and Nintendo. I mean that. Like, that's because I would just be thinking, like, dude, did you hear what? Like, could you imagine if Jim Ryan or Kenichiro Yoshida, the CEO of Sony, said something like this about Sony? What would they be saying right now? What would the fans on the other side of the fence be saying right fucking now if Sony CEO said anything like this? You know exactly what they'd be saying. This is what they would be saying. They'd be saying, well, Sony's going third party. It's just a matter of time. Like, we're going to eventually get God of War. Did you hear what he said? They're going to publish on Xbox. You're saying MBG easily because nothing has been ported. Well, I'll tell you what, man. It would look insane. I would be convinced that if all of these rumors came out and nothing came of it, right? Like, I mean, you have people like Jez Corden from Windows Central saying that he's talked to his sources who are like, you know, he's got his connections, and they're like, yeah, this is a thing that's happening, at least with some of the back catalog at first. And it's just nothing ever happens. I would be convinced this was some kind of elaborate fucking, like, all right, don't announce it, but we're going to generate the rumors ourselves and see how the internet reacts to it type shit. But that doesn't make any sense because, again, Microsoft's CEO and Xbox's CFO literally already said this is what they're doing. So that's why I don't understand why, like, somebody in the chat saying, well, they didn't port anything yet. It's like, dude, they're fucking telling you. Like, they're literally telling you. Yeah, we're publishing now, like, aggressively. Like, that's the thing. They're basically saying that we are going to become more aggressive in the way we publish on PlayStation and Nintendo. Oh shit, yeah. My bad. Yeah, the Xbox developer direct is starting soon. Lost track of time there. So let me wrap up the super chats here. So JD Gamer, again, I appreciate all the super chats, man. You could absolutely be right. The truth is, I'm gonna come to my own conclusions just like everybody is. Everybody's gonna come to their own conclusions. Again, there's some people in the chat right now that still don't believe it. They're like, no, dude, nothing's getting ported. Like, it's just a rumor. It's not true. And I can't blame you because the reality is, until these announcements happen explicitly, it is all rumor and speculation. But one thing that is not rumor or speculation is Microsoft's CEO listed PlayStation and Nintendo before he listed PC and Xbox, saying that they are in a position to become a publisher on PlayStation and Nintendo. Could he just be talking about Call of Duty? Of course. Is he just talking about Call of Duty? Of course not. You'd have to be crazy to think that. All right, we got Planet Schlorpian saying Sony will eventually make their own PC launcher. Yeah, they seem to be working on that, and that's what I'm talking about right there. Once Sony officially announces their own PC launcher, I mean, that is, there you go. Like, that's part of Sony's future beyond the console. You could see a scenario where Sony isn't going to make their, Sony's going to continue to make consoles, but maybe they'll try to make they'll make a play of like, if they have their own PC launcher and the PlayStation Network is like heavily integrated with PC now, you could see them creating a kind of marketing where it's like the PlayStation 6 console is much more affordable than a PC equivalent or something. I mean, they already kind of do that a little bit with the PS5, but they don't really get aggressive with that type of marketing. JD Gamer, again, you're saying MBG, to be clear, the message and the strategy is all Xbox game studios and Bethesda games are Xbox platform exclusives with ABK, Square, Sega games on a case-by-case basis. Well, all right, I'll tell you this, JD Gamer, because if you are right, then damn, Xbox is truly nefarious, bro. Like, if everything they're saying right, if Microsoft is like basically doing like a deceitful kind of marketing, or not even marketing, but just they're making the rounds, you know, and they're using this terminology in such a deceitful way to, you know, to, again, the smoke and the mirrors to the regulators. That fucking sucks, dude. Because if that's true, then Microsoft is worse than I thought they were in terms of like, holy shit, these guys suck. like they're actually willing to go this far in just total annihilation just because they have the, you know, I guess they have the money to do it. So it's like, all right, I guess, I mean, sure, but I don't know. I'm just at this point in time, the signals are so mixed, and when I just try to put myself in the shoes of, again, like Microsoft CEO, you know, like, I don't know, man. If I'm Microsoft CEO, I don't see Sony or Nintendo as a threat to my greater ambition at this point in time. I just don't. But I don't know. You could be right, JD Gamer. So we'll see. Trust me. I feel like we're gonna get a clear, definitive answer by the end of this year. If not, man, it's just gonna be a crazy, you know, crazy conversation we're gonna have for a while. Let me see here. We also have Dark Demon Media saying IGN just reported Microsoft just came out and stated more about going multi-platform. I sent it on Twitter, on the first Twitter page on your page. That's interesting. I wonder, they're probably reporting on what we just talked about. If I had to guess, I don't know that I'm going to have time to look into this right now because this is coming to this portion of the stream is coming to an end, and I'm going to open another stream to react to the direct. Hold on. So IGN says with the acquisition of Call of Duty maker Activision Blizzard, Microsoft can now be a good publisher across all platforms, including rival consoles. They have no other choice. Bro is down bad. Oh, well. These comments are nonsensical. Yeah, so they're basically reporting on what we were talking about. Saying people will stream games from their TV. In the long run, yeah. I think so. The PlayStation Portal sold out again? What? Dude, what the hell? How is this thing still sold out? So thank you, Dark Demon Media. We also have Joshua Reese saying, MBG, if Microsoft backs out of the console market, what company do you think will join it? I don't think anybody. I'll be honest. I don't think anybody. I don't think Xbox is going to back out of the console market, by the way. I think the console's, again, just going to be an option for anybody who wants it. But I don't think, to be clear, Josh, I don't think anybody's going to join. Truthfully. I think it's just too... It's a market that is too difficult to kind of break into. And especially now as we talk about the future of consoles, I don't think the future of consoles looks bleak. I don't. I think it looks good. I just think that the reality is that the future of consoles is they're not going to be here forever. And yeah, it's going to transform, or at least the bulk of the market is not going to be possibly on traditional PC or console. So, but guys, here's what's going to happen, okay? I'm going to end this stream and I'm going to set up a second stream immediately after that's just dedicated to reacting to the Xbox Direct. So if you enjoyed this, please do me a favor and stick around. And, the Xbox Direct is happening in just 20 minutes. So I'm going to obviously go live before that. But 56 members, that's going to carry over to the new stream. I want to thank everybody before I create the second stream for anybody who dropped a super chat. Really appreciate it. Also want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter who does the timestamps. I had a really good conversation with you guys about this. I think there's still more left to be said, at least on my part, but we'll just end it here. And yeah, so I'm going to end this. I'm going to be putting up the Xbox Developer Direct, and I will see you guys over there. Okay, so I'll see you in just a couple minutes.